speaking with Dr. Nancy White today, and we're talking about a number of different topics. Let's start with the ADD and ADHD. First of all, when it comes to little kids, how do you diagnose that, and is it tough to diagnose with little ones?
Well, no, it's not tough to diagnose because in today's world, if they have any kind of attentional problem or focusing problem, they call it ADHD. And what's happened is it's become a bucket, and it's just a bucket of symptoms. When I started this more than 20 years ago, it was something very specific. What it meant 20 years ago, it meant that the theta waves, which are very low frequency, slow waves, the theta waves predominated over the beta waves, which were the fast waves and the focused attention. And we had ratios that we looked at of theta to beta. And that's what we then labeled ADD or ADHD. Actually, at that time, it was even ADD with and without hyperactivity. But over the years, we have found that attentional problems go much further. And so frequently, I would say 30–40%, in fact, it's getting even more predominant. They come in, they have all the same symptoms, but they have too much fast wave. And it's that their brain is a runaway brain and they can't get control of their thoughts. And so it's exhausting. It never shuts up. And so what happens is they have all the symptomology of the old-fashioned ADD, ADHD. So there's that. So anything's a bucket. But then also for the diagnostic thing, I always start out with what I call the quantitative EEG, which is a computerized EEG. And you look to see the brainwave patterns. And we have a reference database of people with very healthy brains that was created over a multi-year period of time and very validated. And you compare the data from that patient to the data from the database, and you get back in standard deviation, so you get the brainwave pattern, and you get where is it out of the norm. And so that's really how we work with it and how we train it, is what's the pattern here. And so as you can see, multitudes of patterns can create attentional problems.
And these are things, when we talk about the theta beta waves, you can physically test for, so you have
Absolutely.
A black or white diagnosis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, it's not near as nebulous as it is out there in the newspaper, in the literature, in the TV. It's like, it's not really like that. And almost anything in nowadays could be called ADHD.
Is it becoming more prevalent in the last 10 or 20 years? I mean, you hear a lot of people say, well, I acted like that when I was a kid. I couldn't pay attention. Or is it just that we know how to diagnose this better?
I think it's a combination of both. You know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, I look back and I clearly was ADD. But I was in a world where teachers had time, where teachers were really there to be sure the student did well. And I was bright, and so if I started wandering off here or there, they quickly brought me back, and they'd send me to the principal to run an errand, or they'd have me clean out a drawer. They always kept me busy. They don't do that anymore. They're too busy, and we have all these, you'll have to forgive me, dumb tests that we think is education, and it's not education. And so the teachers have to teach to the TOS test, and it's like they have a criteria they have to meet, which is not about teaching children. So for the most part, children were handled in school when they had these problems many years ago. Now, they don't put up with them. They're in the way, they're interruptive. They're interruptive of the norm. And so then they're in a lot of trouble. Now, the other piece of that is, yes, I think it's more prevalent because I think we live in a very toxic world. And our very toxic world really affects the brain tremendously. We also are all in fast foods, which affects the brain. In fact, almost everything affects the brain. And so with the kind of world we're living in, the brain is not as functional as it used to be in an overall sense.